Hello, and welcome back to the Southern Bible Thumper channel. Happy Valentine's Day! For this upload, we will be reading Leviticus chapter 14. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, This shall be the law of the leper in the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought unto the priest, and the priest shall go forth out of the camp, and the priest shall look, and behold, if the plague of leprosy be healed in the leper, then shall the priest command to take for him that is to be cleansed 2 birds alive and clean, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And the priest shall command that one of the birds be killed in an earthen vessel over running water. As for the living bird, he shall take it, and the cedar wood, and the scarlet, and the hyssop, and shall dip them in the living bird in the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water. And he shall sprinkle upon him that is to be cleansed from the leprosy 7 times, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall let the living bird loose into the open field. And he that is to be cleansed shall wash his clothes, and shave off all his hair, and wash himself in water, that he may be clean. And after that he shall come into the camp, and shall tarry abroad out of his tent 7 days. But it shall be on the 7th day that he shall shave all his hair off his head, and his beard, and his eyebrows, even all his hair he shall shave off. And he shall wash his clothes also. He shall wash his flesh in water, and he shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take 2 he-lambs without blemish, and 1 ewe-lamb of the first year without blemish, and 3/10 deals of fine flour for a meat offering, mingled with oil, and 1 log of oil. And the priest that maketh them clean shall present the man that is to be made clean, and those things before the Lord, at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall take 1 he-lamb, and offer him for a trespass offering, and a log of oil, and wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. And he shall slay the lamb in the place where he shall kill the sin offering and the burnt offering in the holy place. For as the sin offering is the priest's, so is the trespass offering, it is most holy. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and the priest shall put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. And the priest shall take some of the log of oil, and pour it into the palm of his own left hand. And the priest shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left hand, and shall sprinkle of the oil with his finger 7 times before the Lord. And the rest of the oil that is in his hand shall the priest put upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot, upon the blood of the trespass offering. And the remnant of the oil that is in the priest's hand he shall pour upon the head of him that is to be cleansed, and the priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord. And the priest shall offer the sin offering and the meat offering upon the altar, and the priest shall make an atonement for him, and he shall be clean. And if he be poor and cannot get so much, then he shall take 1 lamb for a trespass offering to be waved, to make an atonement for him, and 1/10 deal of fine flour mingled with oil for a meat offering, and a log of oil, and 2 turtle-doves, or 2 young pigeons, such as he is able to get, and the one shall be a sin offering, and the other a burnt offering. And he shall bring them on the 8th day for his cleansing unto the priest, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord. And the priest shall take the lamb of the trespass offering, and the log of oil, and the priest shall wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. And he shall kill the lamb of the trespass offering, and the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. And the priest shall pour of the oil into the palm of his own left hand. And the priest shall sprinkle with his right finger some of the oil that is in his left hand 7 times before the Lord. And the priest shall put of the oil that is in his hand upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot, upon the place of the blood of the trespass offering. And the rest of the oil that is in the priest's hand he shall put upon the head of him that is to be cleansed, to make an atonement for him before the Lord. And he shall offer the one of the turtle-doves, or of the young pigeons, such as he can get, even such as he is able to get, the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering, with the meat offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for him that is to be cleansed before the Lord. This is the law of him in whom is the plague of leprosy, whose hand is not able to get that which pertaineth to his cleansing. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, When ye be come into the land of Canaan, which I give to you for a possession, and I put the plague of leprosy in a house of the land of your possession, and he that owneth the house shall come and tell the priest, saying, It seemeth to me there as it were a plague in the house. Then the priest shall command that they empty the house before the priest go into it to see the plague. All all that is in the house be not made unclean, and afterward the priest shall go in to see the house, and he shall look on the plague, and behold, if the plague be in the walls of the house with hollow streaks, greenish or reddish, which in sight are lower than the wall, then the priest shall go out of the house to the door of the house and shut up the house 7 days. And the priest shall come again the seventh day, and shall look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the walls of the house. Then the priest shall command that they take away the stones in which the plague is, and they shall cast them into an unclean place without the city. And he shall cause the house to be scraped within round about, and they shall pour out the dust that they scrape off without the city into an unclean place. And they shall take other stones and put them in the place of those stones. And he shall take other mortar and shall plaister the house. And if the plague come again and break out in the house, after that he hath taken away the stones, and after he hath scraped the house, and after it is plaistered, then the priest shall come and look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the house, it is a fretting leprosy in the house. It's unclean. And he shall break down the house, the stones of it, and the timber thereof, and all the mortar of the house, and he shall carry them forth out of the city into an unclean place. Moreover, he that goeth into the house all the while that is shut up shall be unclean until the even. And he that lieth in the house shall wash his clothes, and he that eateth in the house shall wash his clothes. And if the priest shall come in and if the priest shall come in and look upon it, and behold, the plague hath not spread in the house, after the house was plaistered, then the priest shall pronounce the house clean, the plague is healed. And he shall take to cleanse the house 2 birds, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And he shall kill the one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water. And he shall take the cedar wood, and the hyssop, and the scarlet, and the living bird, and dip them in the blood of the slain bird, and in the running water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. And he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, and with the running water, and with the living bird, and with the cedar wood, and with the hyssop, and with the scarlet. But he shall let go the living bird out of the city into the open fields, and make an atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. This is the law for all manner of plague of leprosy and scald, and for the leprosy of a garment, and of a house, and for a rising, and for a scab, and for a bright spot, to teach when it's unclean, and when it's clean. This is the law of leprosy. Summarizing Leviticus chapter 14, God tells Moses the law of the leper in his day of cleansing. The example of the leper at the end of Leviticus 13 details an instance of a bald person becoming affected with the illness on their head, where no hair is. God instructs these individuals to tear their clothes, cover their mouths, scream, unclean, unclean, and quarantine in isolation. So Leviticus 14 verse 1 starts out addressing this scenario. The priest will come to the leper, who is now outside of the camp, to examine them. If the person is healed, the priest will have the person bring 2 birds, cedar wood, scarlet, and hyssop. 1 bird will be killed over running water in a clay or earthen vessel. 1 bird will be dipped into the dead bird's blood along with cedar wood, scarlet, and hyssop. The priest will sprinkle the blood on the person needing cleansing 7 times. The person will then be pronounced clean, and the other bird will be released. He will need to shave all of his body hair, eyebrows included, and this is on the 7th day. So he also needs to wash himself and his clothes, and he has to stay outside of his tent 7 days. On the 8th day, he is to take 2 unblemished male lambs and a 1-year-old unblemished female lamb, get 6 quarts of fine oil or fine flour and 1 log of oil. The priest shall present these things at the tabernacle door. So the male lamb and the oil is for a wave offering. 1 lamb will be slaughtered for a trespass offering. Then after the lamb is slaughtered, some blood will be put on the tip of the right ear, the thumb of the right hand, the big toe of the right foot. The priest will pour some oil into his left hand. He will sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord. Put some on the tip of the right ear, of the right thumb, and the big toe of the right foot, and then pour the rest of the oil on the person's head. Verse 19, a sin offering will be made to cleanse the person, then a burnt offering, then a meat offering. The priest will make atonement, and then the person will finally be clean. If the person is poor and they can't get the correct items, they can get 1 lamb for a trespass offering to be waived, 2 quarts of flour for a meat offering, 1 log of oil, and 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, 1 for a sin offering, 1 for a burnt offering. The same ritual will be conducted on the 8th day from verse 11 through 20 and for verse 23 through 31. This is the law for those that can't participate in the proper cleansing ritual. Then in verse 33, this is when God says, okay, when you come into the land of Canaan, which I give you for a possession, and I put a case of leprous disease in a house, tell the priest that there's a plague in your house. So leprosy, to understand this a little bit better, okay, so leprosy nowadays, sidebar, leprosy now is called Hansen's disease or the Bible disease. Currently, most of our population in America is immune. The disease is not considered highly contagious. It's slow developing, and the most recent cases in 2023 were in Central Florida. Leprosy can be contracted from the 9-band armadillo, who is a known carrier of the bacteria that causes the illness. And when you look it up, there is no known, the exact route of transmission is not known. We just know that there's some of these factors that you could get it from. Protection, it's known, the bacteria that causes leprosy is known to survive in soil. So people who live in the area where it's, like in Central Florida, they're encouraged to wear protective covering when working in dirt, gardening or landscaping or some other things like that. So this disease might have been more serious during biblical times, and I did find some sources that inferred that Hansen's disease is not the same disease that the Bible was talking about. But nevertheless, in verse 33 in the Bible, Leviticus 14, 33, and 34, when we look at these translations, it's a mold. It's not leprosy in the house, but it's a mold. And it does say here, leprous, the plague leprous in the home. This is, and this again, this is the interlinear Bible. It's the direct translation from the Hebrew to English. So that's why if I have a question about what is being said with one of these translations, because I read the King James, I'll just go and look at the interlinear to gain more insight. But leprous, I'm going to click on that. Infection of leprosy. Yeah, it doesn't really offer anything extra. But in the Bible, this is mold or mildew contamination. So this is why um, the priest has to come determine that it's destructive and how to deal with it. And so once if the priest determines that it is a problem, then it has to be shut up for 7 days. If the priest comes again, sees that it's hasn't spread, then the house can be scraped and the parts of the home that are affected can be torn apart, and new materials should be used to seal what was torn off. And so this is the law of leprosy to teach when clean and unclean. So some things that I just wanted to point out again. To make a purification atonement, a priest has to first determine the status of illness, kill one bird, and dip the second bird in the blood of the first bird. That also includes cedarwood, scarlet, hyssop, and then sprinkle the affected person 7 times with that blood, and let the other bird go free. The person that is affected just has to wash their clothes, shave their body hair off, and stay outside their tent for 7 days after they've been isolated from camp during the duration of their illness. After they do all this, they have to make a meat offering, a trespass offering, a wave offering, and a sin and burnt offering. So, issues of the body. So we saw in Leviticus chapter 12 where the woman, in order to cleanse herself of her bleeding, she has to make a sacrifice. And we see here that a person who gets leprosy, you're probably not trying to get leprosy. And also, it's a slow developing illness. So a person can be affected for a few years before it ever presents itself on the skin, which is terrifying. But but then again, the illness that is here today that is called leprosy there is some debate whether the biblical version was the same. But this is what a person has to do. Verse 21, if he be poor, he has to do an alternative form of the ritual. Lacking and not having resources, there's always an alternative when a person or there is not enough resources, but this will always be an obstacle. Having to allow separate circumstances for those who are lacking will always be an extra obstacle. So, at the beginning of the Bible, the command to Adam and Eve was to be fruitful and multiply. And so, this is another reason why when, some people really criticize prosperity preachers and say they're money hungry, but preachers are human. And we live in a society that really is money driven. If you don't have it, you have to have money. And just think about that sometimes. You can't even follow God properly if you don't have enough money sometimes. And if you're a church, if you're an organization, you want to support your community and you don't have any funds, you're not going to be able to do anything. And that doesn't represent God well when you can't do anything because of your lack of resources. So, not saying I agree with every single thing But I certainly understand where the intention comes from, to get money yourself, get financially stable yourself, and then try to pass that information along to others. Verses 33 through 57 is discussing mold and how this is the term used here is leprosy. Well, even though this is not, we all know that if you have mold in the home and you breathe in the mold spores, that can cause illness. So it is destructive. Also, when you think about it, leprosy somewhat has the same element of leprosy. It gets in the home or it gets on a surface and it's hard to get rid of. I mean, you have to just tear it out. You look at the status of it, you see, is it deep in the walls? Is it deep inside of it? It's very similar. Also, in verse 34, God says, let's look at it. Yes, when you get into the house, when you get into the land of Canaan, which I give you your possession, and I put a case of leprous disease in a house in the land of your possession, and I put a spreading mold in the house of the land. What this reminded me of when I read it is that this is the fire and brimstone God the Southern Baptists spoke of in my youth. And the prevailing attitude is that God is responsible for everything. So everything good, everything bad, everything is God's will. Nothing is human's fault. Nothing is Satan's fault. It's just God does everything. But God was talking here. So, the fact that he would just say, yeah, I may contaminate some of the houses in the land that you possess with spreading mold. So that's there. Also, the last critique, but again, Moses is writing this by himself. He's credited for writing the first 5 books of the Bible. And this chapter could have been organized a bit better. That's my actual critique. Verse 38 mentions that the house... Oh, it's going to take them. Okay. Verse 38, the house is shut up for 7 days, right? Verse 46 through 47, how it should go. Verse 38, the house is shut up for 7 days. Verse 46 through 47, anyone who enters the home that is shut up due to suspected mold should be, they're going to be unclean, right? Then it should be verse 39 through 45. Take effective stones away if mold is present and rebuild the home. And then verse 48 through the end. If rebuilt home is deemed clean, begin the cleansing ritual. So it should be verse 38, verse 46 through 47, verse 39 through 45, and then 48 to the end. And that would make much more sense than how Moses wrote it. But again, Moses did not have his solution. He didn't have a woman helping him to organize this information. Eve was created as Adam's solution. That's why men have to do more. That's why men have to pursue. That's why even if a man has millions of dollars, he still has to pay for the company of women because the woman is the solution ultimately. But this is Leviticus chapter 14. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Happy Valentine's Day. And the next upload will be Leviticus chapter 15. Have a good night.